Well, welcome everyone. We'd like to welcome you in the second day of our conference. I'm the lecturer and PR manager of the Institute of the First Media Academy, and today we're talking about digitalization of business in 2023. It's clear that the trend has been ongoing for a number of years, and the subject today is very important. Today we are going to discuss with Georgy Chernyavsky. He is the head of consultant group from Tescom. How electronic turnover is digitalized in 2023. Today we're going to discuss business digitalization in 2023. Speaking of Tescom's standpoint, I'd like to give you some update on the trends in electronic turnover, human resources, staff turnover, speak about digital signature, and why is it necessary. Also talk about markings on packaging and on traceability of products. So first we will begin a small block on electronic turnover. The key drivers for development of electronic turnover, providing impetus for development, is general digitalization of all the processes. This is truly so, because any sphere of activity, any live sphere is going electronic format. Everything is now going electronic. The controlling bodies. What we mean is this. The taxation services, single tax account, single tax payment as a mandatory form of reporting for all of the business entities, all of the LLCs, JSCs, everyone is providing their accounting and reporting online, and the tax service is trying to eliminate the paper documentation turnover from interaction with business. Thirdly, it's business. Since electronic turnover is always much more profitable than paper, no matter what they say, no matter how much they're afraid of it, electronic turnover of documentation saves money and saves costs. It may not always be convenient, but it does provide savings. The equal importance of the digital document and paper document. Paper document, traditionally signed and stamped, is exactly the same as an electronic document signed with an e-signature. And that's clear that the documents are valid legally exactly the same. Now, this is the process scheme, process map for the turnover of electronic e-documentation. First is the buyer and seller exchange documentation without the operator through own software, which is not actually done. Second option is across the operator, across us, for instance, across Tescom, as an e-commerce operator. The buyer can sign a document with an e-signature on our service called Tescom Filer that has this capacity to upload the doc, sign it with an e-signature, and send it to the seller, to the retailer. And this is the whole point. Now, third option is when the seller and the buyer have different e-commerce documentation operator. For instance, one customer has Tescom e-Filer as a software, and another one uses Bear Chorus. And between us and between Tescom and Bear Chorus, there is certainly roaming. So regardless of the e-documentation operator you use, you're able to interact and exchange e-documentation. Now, the difference between paper and e-documents. On the left, we have paper documentation. On the right, e-documentation. On shortly UZD. It means this abbreviation means it's a legally significant documentation turnover. So that's the whole point. Now, briefly, across this slide, the main difference is we cannot fill, we cannot touch the e-document, we can print it. It is stored in an electronic database or any electronic medium. And another difference is that with e-turnover of documents, it's impossible to have the same type of problems as paper. Paper can be ripped, folded, lost. Somebody may forget to sign or approve a piece of paper document. It can be lost in the filings, in the archives, because if we were to log into a large archive, if we were to go to a large archive of a large company, big cupboards of paperwork, nobody has touched them for a decade. And to get rid of that, to avoid all of this complexity, electronic document turnover has been developed. Next is the ease and comfort of use. That's the next focus. Now, electronic signature, e-signature. Top line, we have ordinary electronic e-signature. Then we have a more complicated type of e-signature called so first is non-qualified and then is a qualified, so professional and non-professional. The difference is that the ordinary e-signature means just a login and password. When you log into your social media or Instagram, so we use simple e-signature for everyday operations, even when we open our mobile phone. It has poor protection because passwords may be breached. There are certain software for breaching passwords and so on. So simple, ordinary e-signature cannot be legally recognized unless a certain type of agreement has been entered that suggests that this electronic signature, ordinary, is legally binding for both parties. But nobody does that. Nobody wants that, and it is strange. So for this reason, a qualified professional e-signature has been developed. Now, what is the difference between the two? The qualified e-signature can sign significant legal documentation, also taxation documentation. So if we are speaking of reporting, accounting, federal reporting bodies paperwork, here we have an increased qualified signature. The non-qualified ordinary signature would not be suitable for that. It is necessary only for exchanging documents between counterparties. So in other words, putting it simply, first part is login passwords, second is exchanging documentation between two parties in business, and the third part is everything to do with reporting and accounting to government bodies and signing documentation to give them legal significance. What about banks, is the question from the audience. What do you mean, banks? Let's leave some time after the presentation for questions. Thank you. Banking signature is a little bit different in terms of requirements. It's a bit different from the qualified e-signature. Now, what is the process for issuing this type of e-signature? Everything is changing. And until the 31st of August, all of everyone who received e-signatures at accredited approval centers like Tesco, if you are the company head, you have your general legal e-signature qualified. Before, you used to be able to come to Tesco, sign up for this signature. Today, since the 21st of August of 2022, the e-signatures for the head of the company can only be given by taxation service. So not one private center will be able to issue this type of signature apart from taxation services. from the tax authority. So after the 31st of August 2023, this will be the new legislative change. This is important to understand, note, and be aware of. Now, for the company staff who used to get separate electronic signatures, now all you need is a machined POA. It's also an interesting point, I'll tell you about it later. Now, e-signature of a staff member and e-signature of an individual. For instance, each of us today can apply for e-signature as an individual. It will be tokenized on a flash, and on a flash card you can sign documents, do various things. There is also an employee certificate. Employee certificate is presented based on the normal signature and it allows interaction with the company for business. This is the usage of the new qualified e-signature and the machine-read POA. Now, today we have a certification center of Federal Tax Authority that provides the head of the company with electronic signature. And at the bottom we can see what can be done with the signature. They can take part in tenders. They can provide their reporting and accounting to government bodies. They can engage in electronic documentation turnover with counterparties and work at government databases and government portals for tenders, for instance. That's the whole point of having an e-signature for the head of the company. Now, staff members of the company, imagine we have a large company and it has an accountant. Accountant also needs to send documentation to reporting bodies, such as reporting or anything else. Or perhaps do the stock take and other activities, so the manager is not going to be doing it personally. He will hire an accountant. And for this hired employee to be able to do it, to perform his duties, he is provided with a machine-read POA. So first of all, we have a simple e-signature for any individual. So first of all, a staff member gets that. And on top of it, he gets the machine-read POA on top of that signature. This is done by the company head. So the company head delegates his responsibility. He empowers the normal individual signature with additional authority to perform various manipulations in company interest. So basically, in the past, a person used to get a separate employee e-signature, but today it's enough for the head just to issue a machine-read POA to perform certain activities, and the range of activities can be limited. Now, the main changes to the e-signature and the centers of certification in 23. First of all, certification have been extended until 31st of August. So certification, some certificates were issued not by taxation service but by private centers. They will still be valid until the 31st of August. Since the 1st of January, we saw new norms on using new e-signature for individuals and a machine-read POA on top. This is possible from the 1st of January. This has been a pilot previously, but today it is working and is available. A very good step. Now, moving on to e-documents, we have two types of e-docs. First is formalized e-docs. They are legally significant, and non-formalized, non-legally significant. Now, what is the key difference? Non-formalized documentation without legal significance allows you to enter into business deals, business agreements through electronic turnover. So this Federal Law 149 Part 2 regulates the usage of these non-formalized documents in the sphere of electronic turnover. Now, these documents are non-formalized having no legal significance because they are not automatically recognized by regulatory authorities as legally significant. For instance, if we had decided I'm the head of one business, you're the head of another, and we decided to exchange documentation electronically. This can be PDF files, images, whatever. So the docs we send each other are going to be called non-formalized docs. Exactly. However, they are going to be legally significant only because we signed an agreement early on stating that we will both recognize these docs, these e-docs, as legally significant and binding. Then they will enjoy legal weight. So there are ways to circumvent it, but this is the essence of it. No, next. They can be exchanged directly with bypassing the operator. Can be done independently, but it doesn't work so well. It's not very handy. You can sign with any e-signature, depending on your agreement terms, contract terms, even if the contract has been unsigned, but you are just exchanging e-docs with your counterparty, for instance, in different cities or different countries, and using a file exchange program, you can exchange files. You can sign files with any e-signature because non-formalized docs can be signed with any signature. Now, agreements, deals, offers, others, all the formats are possible. Any document can be signed in a non-formalized document way without legal significance. Next is formalized docs. Let's quickly run through this. These are the docs that are signed by qualified e-signature. So that means they can be signed only by the head of the company or by the machine-read POA-issued employee. They are recognized as legally significant, these documents, and they are directly related to regulatory authorities and the government. First of all, these are bills, accounts, invoices when we supply products to the store. Universal document is signed, listing the procedure. This is all available in formalized docs. And another important difference to informal docs is that formal docs have a certain set format. They always look the same. If the docs are non-formalized, in these docs will not have that because they have a set format. Corrective accounts, acts, commissioning works, accepting works. This is the layout of a formalized documents. At the bottom of the slide, you will see what it looks like in programming code. It looks quite complicated. Now, next, electronic turnover in company. This is e-documentation governing human resource relations, employment relations. This optimizes this interaction with staff on distant or remote work. This is very important because remote work is popular today, and the staff member doesn't need to attend the office for every document. It's much easier, much handier when the document is supplied by HR online across this staff document e-turnover. Next, it reduces time 5 or 10-fold on processing staff documentation. Big organizations, you're on 10th floor, accounting is on second. You come, it's lunch, can't sign anything, and to avoid these difficulties, e-turnover, e-docs can resolve these questions. Next, this cuts costs. Certainly less paper, less stuff, less dye from the printer, less printer dye, and less office space. This certainly saves costs. Next is reducing costs on routine operation for company staff. Certainly it's easier when we have a routine template doc. We can just change the employee particulars and send it across. Now, what cannot be signed with this type of e-turnover internally? First of all, workplace accidents cannot be provided across e-platforms. You can hire but not fire. The dismissal documentation cannot be forwarded across e-systems and will not probably be available in the future, because when an employee is leaving his workplace, it has a whole list of actions, payments, pension entitlements, contributions, and so on. So you cannot do it. Next is OHS briefings. OHS briefing has to be signed. Once you hear the the occupational health and safety instructions, we know where to go, where's the fire escape, and so on. So this document cannot be sent across e-systems. Speaking of work in hospitality industry, there are many logs, many certificates to sign. For instance, there are various protocols of operating various pieces of kitchen equipment. And all of this can be signed with a signature. These are all serious documents. They cannot be signed simply. Now, let me explain which signature is available for this. We can sign a labor agreement, we can sign the financial responsibility agreement, educational agreement, training agreement, further training. We can send across a request for dismissal or leaving your workplace, but you won't be able to receive a signed by HR copy. You can apply for promotions or transfers. Changes to labor agreements in case of salary changes are also possible. The order for disciplinary is also possible, and the rest are also possible. This can be signed with non-qualified, qualified, and ordinary e-signature across the Work in Russia portal. They have a portal where simple e-signature can be presented to sign normal documents. And the normal ordinary signature, as I said earlier, is just a login and password. So this is insufficient, clearly. Now, in terms of human resources, please look at the process map. There is HR member who using e-platforms, a solution like 1C or something else, maybe with a separate API plugin for a separate reporting system. So then we have 3 staff members. Imagine they're all lacking e-signature. So once they come to a new job, they need new signatures. So human resources of the company, in this case, has to issue e-signatures to each employee. And the communicative system of approval. This is the approval of the document passed on to the employee for signing. What else is important in the document turnover? You arrive at the company and they tell you to get an e-signature. The employee is able to refuse e-turnover and e-signature. This is a voluntary decision, mind you, and your employer cannot force you to engage in electronic turnover with HR. It's only down to the employee. And why? Let me explain why it's not a perfect system. Because a company has 1,000 employees, 999 are all for it, and one smarty wears a tinfoil hat and doesn't want a part of it. So that's a problem. Now, this is some means for working with e-turnover. First of all, 1S software suite. And here we have the payroll and human resources plugin module from 1C suite, which fine-tuned for our customers. It's all tailor-tuned and it includes all of the necessary functions we mentioned earlier with HR. It also has TESCOM certificate management plugin for the employee to be able to use his e-signature. He needs to be issued this signature. And using this software suite, certification programming software from TESCOM, you can provide your staff with e-signatures. Now, as for the document approval process, what are your options? Not sure of the others, but we have Telegram bots. For instance, a staff member is connected to the bot, he gets an update in Telegram to sign a doc or send a doc. Just click a button, it will work. Or you can use your email. So there are many ways of handy interaction in e-turnover documentation. It's all available. And our best service worldwide, TESCOM Filer, is our service for e-docs. The Filer plugin can be implemented also for individuals. They can use it to sign. Realizations, implementation for companies. These are some ideas. So first of all, work group is organized. First, we analyze the structure in hierarchy. And then if we implement e-staff turnover, then we has to be recorded in the documentation and statutes of the company. And fifth is scaling the project. So this means e-turnover being implemented gradually into organization. Now speaking of the documentation. I have taken this presentation to explain it. Now over to the monitoring of the legislative changes. From the 1st of September 2017,
обмениваться электронными перевозочными документами и использовать электронные транспортные накладные. То есть, кто не знает, транспортная накладная — это вот такая бумажка А4 горизонтального формата, в которой написана вся информация о перевозке груза. Там указывается информация, кто перевозит, что перевозит, куда перевозит.
this is the information.
Юридические связки.
Legal aspects, everything is available, and from the 1st of September,
Можно организовать в рамках электронного документа
everything is available in an online e-documentation turnover. And until year 2035,
потому что они хотят, в принципе, все транспортные
developing transport strategy is important. All of the transport invoices, documentations, bills of lading, everything is going to be transferred online as well.
Что такое ТПР? Электронная
Now,
транспортная накладная.
electronic bill of lading, transport invoice. It has only recently emerged into e-turnover.
Почитаю со слайда. Закон регламентирует
Now, the law regulates
с помощью оператора
this document to be used when conducting any transportation activity as part of the contract. TESCOM can then send this document to the federal transport invoice system. These documents are signed by all of the players in the process, exclusively with a top-level qualified signature at all levels of freight. The process of interaction with invoices is different to classic e-turnover, because in classic turnover we sign it, send it across to counterparty, it is signed by them, it is done. Electronic transport bill of lading or invoice, one doc is signed in 4 stages or more in case of force majeure. So it's a different structure format. This is how it works. For instance, we have a freight forwarder, an agent, and an addressee. They all exchange electronic transport bill of lading invoice using our e-documentation services. TESCOM automatically sends all of this documentation to InfoTrans database, who then further scale it and send it across all of the relevant government services and authorities. So TESCOM here, the operator, is responsible for passing on all of the documentation. Now, this may be used by huge transport freight companies, for instance, tanker operators. If you are independently organizing this freight, private, if you are the private carrier, freight carrier on land surface, not a sea carrier, and it's important for this electronic bill of lading to be used only for land freight. It's no good for air freight, railroad freight, only for trucks and cars, everything with 4 wheels and a steering wheel. Now I have cut down my presentation slightly, not to overburden you with the details. So here is the transport e-doc. We have 4 titles, first, second, third, fourth. So at each transportation stage, each stage, the carrier, the freight forwarder, and the addressee signs with their own signature in titles. The first title is signed by the freight forwarder when they generated the transport bill, the electronic bill of lading. The second title is used to sign by the freight forwarder company. They sign the second. This means they accepted the freight and are taking it somewhere. Third, is signed, third signature belongs to the receiver. Once he receives the delivery, freight delivery, he signs with his signature. And the fourth title, the last, is signed by the freight forwarder, closing this transport invoice, this bill of lading, confirming that the delivery has been made and freight has been forwarded. There are also 5, 6, 7, 8, there are another 4 titles, and they are designed, the rest are designed for force majeure situations, any changes to address, costs, shipping, changes to transport invoice are confirmed here. So all the 3 members take part in signing this transport bill of lading, this transport invoice. This is what it looks like. This is the first part signed by the freight forwarder, listing all of the participants, where, when, and over here they complete the information about the driver, the information here on the vehicles. And certainly we have a line here for the freight forwarder, for the carrier. So for the carrier to be able to receive this part T2 for signing, his complete details need to be listed here. Now, why does this make more sense compared to classic paper transport invoice or bill of lading? You cannot make mistakes here. If you go wrong, it will highlight red and not allow you to take the next step. This is what the titles look like. This is how they work. And reducing the payment terms or period for freight. For instance, we are forwarding freight from Moscow to Omsk in Siberia. And our driver has a transport invoice, his bill of lading. He presents his bill of lading upon delivery. It is signed, cross-signed by the customer in hand, accepting the delivery freight. Now, the payment term, the payment period before the document comes back to Moscow, no one is going to receive any payment because the document has to be signed by the freight forwarder. And this delays payments. This is a huge pain for any logistical company. Is a delay on payments, days to payment. So they came up with a system where all the 3 parts of freight process, just clicking at the click of a button, can receive all of their transport invoices, all their bills of lading, and certainly this increases speed, this reduces costs on paper processing because the transport invoices have to be available in 4 copies for the sender, for the forwarder, for the carrier as well, and one as a backup copy. So this is really handy. Just imagine 4 pieces of documents. Sometimes they get ripped, they get lost, they get damaged, they get stained in paper form. So this avoids all of these problems. So for this reason, there are electronic documents avoiding this type of problems. Everyone gets paid quickly and everyone is happy. And auditing traces have to do with the total e-turnover in documents, because when the documents are stored in print, in hard copy, for instance, later down the road, you go to court with your counterpart. And as part of a court case, we need to provide proof, documentation of short change or short payment. So we go to the archive, start digging in the paper docs. Murphy's Law says nothing is there. And we are stuck with this. Everyone is angry, everyone is worried. Documents are lost. in electronic format. The docs will never be lost. We will be able to select what we need, and the doc can be opened and provided to courts. Now, for this reason, transport invoices, it's very important.
будут вырастать, потому что электронно-транспортный документ
Electronic
является
transport
формализованным,
turnover invoice is a
формализованным документом,
formalized doc.
подписывается исключительно усиленной квалифицированной электронной подписью и, соответственно, может быть полностью юридическим доказательством того или иного действия. Как это реализовано у нас в Taxcom? Это, соответственно, также в системе файлер, Taxcom файлер вот у нас слева на компьютере, и можно же и пользоваться мобильным приложением.
You can use it in a mobile app or as part of the software suite. It has the electronic transport invoices, all of the formats.
Сервис, который удобный во всем советую. Дальше. Что касается электронно-транспортной накладной, самое интересующий вопрос,
As to do with most interesting
что делать, если
problems.
остановит, как его, гаишник. Вот. Сотрудник дорожной полиции
The staff employee,
говорит, что везете? Он говорит, ну вот везу яблоки, покажи транспортную накладную. Раньше он ему давал бумажку.
before the drivers used to provide paper invoices for the products, for the freight they were carrying. What can they show the police officer? They can now open application, click this button, and the button will create a QR code. All of
Сканируют, смотрят, да, действительно, там везете яблоки, все отпускают. Это все уже работает. Вот, если что, можно пользоваться. Так, ну здесь ответы на частый вопрос, наверное, это не супер интересно. Да, поэтому сейчас нас очень сильно, тем более задержим.
Это последний вопрос.
О,
С крупными транспортными компаниями связь, деловые линии.
можно, конечно, все могут с ними работать. Просто как раз-таки для крупных компаний это больше всего интересно. Потому что, ну, сами себе представьте, крупная транспортная компания.
just imagine a large
1000 машин, 100 фур в день. Сколько
transport company sends 100 trucks a day. How much documentation do they get per day? This is amazing. And if everything is in e-turnover, this can be formalized, nothing is lost.
Поэтому как раз в первую очередь крупные компании в этом заинтересованы, а там, где крупные компании, они за собой подтянут и все остальные, средние и маленькие. Вот. И рано или поздно все к этому так или иначе придут. Ведь это не того или иного. Так, что касается маркировки товаров. Маркировка товаров сразу.
Well,
Это вот.
product marking. Markings. Take a look at the bottle cap, for instance. You will see the marking with the codes. All these codes are available at any bottle of bottled water, any dairy products, cigarettes. So in many other product categories across beer, for instance, since the 1st of March. Now, what does it mean? This is the regulatory information, standards. There are a million pages of documents. You can fall asleep from the second. Now, what is the point with mandatory product markings? For instance, if you produce water or deal in water, distribute water, you have to be part of state marking system, otherwise you are breaching legislation. And here we can see production, perfume, toilet water. Why such a wide range? All of these products have to be part of the marking system. Pilot projects in the nearest future are going to be bikes, wheelchairs, food supplements. Beer is coming along, alcohol, so since the 1st of March, I think, or 1st of April, the beer is coming along. And this will certainly provide for a markup. And now, This is how it works. We have a manufacturer, distributor, and a retail store selling the product. All of the players in the chain are working with water, instance, bottled water. So we have a manufacturer,
У нас есть производитель, который произвел некоторую бутылку воды. У нас есть
we have a
дистрибьютор,
distributor
который
for this water,
купил продает.
and
И у
we
нас есть
have
розничный продавец,
a
который
retail
приобретает эту бутылку потом
point of sale
опять
where you can buy this bottle of water who purchases it in 100 units, for instance.
товар обязан
So
производитель
manufacturer must mark
через
the
электронную
product,
официальную
the
передачу
distributor,
продукта.
when
И
he is
продавец
passed
этот товар,
the
он
product
тоже
across the e-dock, he also scans all the QR codes,
ну и, естественно, розничный продавец,
and
который
also
принимает
the retail
себе
store,
магазин,
when they accept the product, they also scan the QR codes, and when a person buys this bottled water,
кассир, помимо того, что
the
вводит
cash register,
наш штрих-код, он
apart
еще
from
вбивает свой
scanning
QR-код.
the
Там покупали недавно
apart from scanning the product, it scans also the barcode. If you recently bought water or dairy, you may have noticed that it is scanned twice. And when it is scanned on the bottom, that's a store's barcode, and at the top, this is the system for the
то есть, когда кассир
called
сканирует
Honest
QR-код,
Fair
и
Mark.
отправляется
This is a
информация,
national
то
marking system,
какая-то бутылка
product
продалась
marking
в
system. And
обороте.
then the record logs that the bottle has been sold and it's out of the turnover. It's important for all of the three players of this process to take part, to use this e-system across the operator of this electronic turnover, for instance, Tescom, and the retail operator,
Вот. И, в принципе,
also
иными
Tescom.
словами, каждый из этих
So
участников, когда они
every one
сканируют
of the
код,
participants, when
отправляет
they
эту
scan this
информацию через
code,
вещественный знак
the
продавца.
information is sent to the
Информация о
Fair
движении
Mark
данного
system
товара
on
должна быть
movements of this product.
чтобы чистым актом в итоге продается нижестоящий.
And then
Для того, чтобы
is scaled to everyone else. This is necessary for the government
честность оборота.
to understand and to confirm the fairness, honesty, transparency in turnover of this type of products. So mandatory turnover in traceable imported products is also important. We're talking about all of the products here arriving from overseas, anything non-made in Russia. And here we are discussing
Информация должна передаваться
that
в,
information on products has to be
получается,
passed on to the regulator.
Иными словами, все импортные товары, не все, какая-то из них часть, которую сейчас видим,
And all the imported products. Now, these are white goods, heavy equipment, baby seats, wheelchairs. If all of these products are imported from overseas, the government has to understand where they came from, who is selling it, how they came, how they were transported. All of the organization and sole proprietors who are buying these products originating from overseas have to provide data to this traceability system. And this is the system with traceability. It's very similar to Fair Mark system. The importer here passes over to the distributor along with the bills of lading and invoices. Then they pass it on to the retail store in turn, and all of the three players interact with each other across the operator of electronic turnover like Tescom, passing over the information across us. We transfer, for instance, we get the information from them, we send it on to tax authority and other regulators. This is all done electronically.
Что касается
And now, for the operators of e-turnover, that's us, Tescom.
значит, что это такое?
Now, let me introduce
Это зарегистрированная российская
our
организация,
company. It's a registered Russian entity which provides activity on providing legally significant e-turnover across telecommunication channels using e-signature and possessing sufficient technological staff and legal capacity to perform this activity. This is the formula, the formulation of who we are. Now, the register of e-turnover operators, there are 76 of these operators. Out of the 76, some are able to provide services, others are not. Tescom, for instance, can realize, implement all of the opportunities available to any operator of e-turnover. So we have a whole range. The operator is not obliged. You cannot ask them to check the validity of your e-signature. So if your e-signature has been done somewhere, you came here, you exchanged docs with us, then a problem happens, lawsuit, whatever. We are not responsible for you using a wrong signature. It may not be possible, I don't think, but they've got this rule, so it may be yet possible. Next is the, the operator is not forced to verify the validity of all the e-invoices. For instance, Federal Taxation Service comes up with a format of the doc. These are legally significant docs, but they can be signed with qualified legal signature. We use it, we take this format, adopted it according to their standard. So, if we make a mistake, us or any operator makes a mistake with e-documentation, then legally we are not responsible for it. But from experience, I can tell you that these cases of the operator being at fault in filling the document template is not possible, practically, because this can kill the company reputation. Everyone pays close attention to it. Next is document storage database. Quite often operators misguiding the client, saying they will store your docs. Not one e-doc operator is forced to store your docs. You can store them yourself. Create a folder on your work tray, download the docs in HTML format. This is the format used in e-doc turnover. They only weigh a couple of kilobytes, and you can keep them all in the same folder or upload and open them in the system. The usual docs, which are transferred across the operator, can also be opened and accessed.
Да, 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 это есть. То есть я говорю, да, это остается. То есть я говорю, что если, например, через 5 лет ты туда зайдешь и
So
решишь, что
if you log in 5 years' time and you won't see these documents in our database, we have no claims to offer. We are not legally obliged to store these docs.
это транспорт для ваших документов. То есть мы являемся условным удобным посредником, который предлагает
We are
удобное цифровое решение для
a
вас,
great intermediary
пользуясь электронными
providing you
технологиями,
with a
обеспечиваем
convenient
доступность
e-solution
блоков.
so that you can exchange your docs with ease and comfort.
Соглашение о
And
работе
now,
ОСДО с контрагентом. Вот, кстати говоря, это соглашение, которое вы заключаете с вашим
let's
контрагентом.
go to the agreement that you enter with your counterparty to exchange or engage in electronic document turnover. This has to be listed in your contract. It is non-regulated at the moment. There is no template, so this has to be done by a qualified legal professional,
Простой электронной подписи
legal counsel.
и универсальной неквалифицированной
And also universal, non-qualified, and qualified, so it can be used, it can be listed in the contract.
замечаете, что мы с вами будем обмениваться
First, it states that we are going to exchange e-docs, and they are going to be legally binding and significant. We will recognize your PDFs, you recognize ours, and then all the docs will be signed with non-qualified signature from any one side. It is absolutely equal to the signature by a general manager. So it's no problem. Now, if you are exchanging electronic e-docs,
Иными словами, у вас там продуктовый магазин, вам привезли поставку продукции.
in
В
any
вашем
case,
электронном там
это не сто.
файле появляется запись, то, что УПД, там номер такой. Вы мне можете говорить, посмотреть, что там находится.
we can go to this section, check all the docs you have. To exchange these docs, you don't need any agreement. These are formalized documents. They need no agreement because these are state documents. Apart from that, you need agreements and contract stipulations. Now, roaming is next.
возможность
This is the
использовать
opportunity
разными организациями разных операторов электронного документооборота. Потому что
for different organizations to use different turnover operators.
некоторые схожие услуги предоставляют. Например, я пользуюсь Тасконтом, а вы пользуетесь чем-то другим. Вот. И чтобы мой документ, который я вам отправил, вы смогли
And
подписать,
for you to be able to accept the document I sent, there is this great
кто-то
amendment.
говорит о том, что это возможно, это нужно сделать, чтобы если у меня там
This
у вас там что-то другое, я
governing
документ направил, вы его с своей стороны
the process. If I send you the document, you will be able to accept it, open, sign with your e-signature on your end.
инструменты для работы с электронным документооборотом. Какие они?
Tools
Существуют.
for working
Да, у
with
нас есть
e-turnover.
и, в принципе, неважно, какой субъект
Regardless
существует.
of the legal
Как можно работать с ними?
body,
Первое,
how
это
can you work
это
with electronic document turnover? First of all, one C softwares with any other accounting, reporting, enterprise suites. Secondly, you can integrate the module into your system if you use not one C but TerraLink or something else. You can have a module developed where we can set up this program suite. It will work and you'll be able to exchange e-turnover. And when we don't have one C here or something else, but we want to work with one C, and we need a simple solution. We have a web portal, test compiler tool. It's not a program, it's just a service tool. You can open it in your browser, log in with your login and password, and internally you can store your docs. And this is the procedure. You log in, and that's what it looks like on your computer screen. The document can be created for new docs, can be uploaded, printed, stored, signed, find a counterpart. Everything is available online. You can use it online, electronic turnover, e-turnover is the future. Here, dear friends, I would like to stop. That's all for me. If you do have any questions, I would love to answer them. Thank you.
просили микрофон,
Подождите,
да.
пожалуйста, не говорите без микрофона, ладно? Мы вас не слышим.
Thank you very much. Please use the mic.
Когда говорили о
Now, when you said what will happen when the truck driver taking the products is stopped by police, they have to open the app. What do they do if they haven't got internet? How does this work?
он является
Well, first of all, the QR code.
пример какой-нибудь привести. Блин, у меня тут плохо их привести.
I have only some bad examples. I'm sorry.
Ну, есть, да, есть такой вариант, он такой более кустарный, но фишка в том, что
The point is,
в программе
software's
этот документ,
the program on your phone
там есть,
has the document uploaded, and the QR code is generated immediately based on the doc. You don't need internet online connection.
красно-белого, да, где QR-код постоянно изменяется, он не статичен, поэтому скрин там вдруг 10% отправить не получится, проверял. Вот. Здесь все в этом плане.
Everything
Вот. Если
is
это,
fixed.
конечно, такой главный вопрос, как раз-таки тоже.
That's the key point here. On the transport invoice, what happens if we don't have online connection? No problem. Everything is fixed.
насчет банковских подписей.
And what about bank?
Банковские подписи это
Bank signature. Well, bank signature is a bit different. This moment, 31st of August, I can tell you,
усиленные квалифицированные электронные подписи
increased qualified signature for organization heads can only be issued by Federal Taxation Service. All the rest, for instance, as a STESCOM, What can we do?
удобность
Let's
привязки
imagine
печати
you
очень
come to
удобно.
Tescom and say you
Как
want a
вопрос,
signature. We
было бы
say, yeah,
удобнее,
no problem.
попроще получить
We can help
собрать
you
все
get it.
документы, зайти в
So we
кабинет
can help you
проверить
collect all of the
налоговую,
docs,
ты просто туда
file
вводишь
it to the
12
taxation
цифровой код.
service. You go there
То
once and
есть
receive it.
банковская электронная подпись,
With
как
a
бы это реализуется,
banking
я, честно говоря,
e-signature,
пока вот не
it's a
знаю.
different story.
Может
I
быть,
couldn't
что-то
give you
будет
the
новее, но
details. I think
электронная
it may be
подпись
a bit
сама по себе
different. But the e-signature generally, the one we have now, this improved,
налоговую службу. Все
strengthened,
остальное можно получить в этой электронной
restricted
печати через
signature
интернет.
can only be
Но
received from the taxation
соответственно, для
service.
госуслуг можно сформировать
The
электронную подпись
others can
физического
be
лица,
generated, for instance,
отправив
for
на
individuals, can be
орган,
generated at your government services
документ,
portal.
пользователю госуслуги приходит, например, с электронной подписью физического лица,
With an
да,
e-signature
соответственно,
for
можно
individuals, for
заключать
citizens,
все
you
эти
can
сделки
sign
недвижимости, покупку дома, квартиру,
property
аренду.
transactions
Вот. Но опять же, если электронной подписью от
with
лица, то,
your
например, человек,
e-signature
условно, что
as an
покупает квартиру,
individual.
нет такой электронной подписи,
But if you
то
sign it
электронная
and
печать будет
your
необходима.
seller
То есть,
doesn't have this
разговоры
e-signature
про
to
электронный
cross-sign,
документооборот,
you'll still need to print it
это,
out
короче,
and
схема
sign it
обмениваться
by hand.
электронными документами
So
электронными.
if you
Вот
want to
человек тоже
exchange
должен как бы быть
e-docs
готов
with
со своей
anyone,
стороны
that
документ
person
подписать.
has to
Иначе в
be
этом смысле нет
prepared
зачем
to sign
подписывать.
the docs.
А вот еще обстоятельство
Also,
одно
because
маленькое,
otherwise it doesn't make any
на вопрос
point.
сразу отвечу.
And
Вы наверняка
also,
видели вот
you've
бумажную
probably
бирку,
seen a
там
lot
внизу синенькая такая печать, как будто бы электронная
a
подпись у вас
blue
такая металлическая,
stamp
может быть. Вот
looking
я могу
like
сразу сказать, что
electronic
такой документ,
signature at the
он
bottom of the
никаких
dock.
ценний
And I
представляет.
can tell you that these
Если он
docs, they are not
выкладывается на
significant.
международную программу, например, на Статстом, вот тогда он,
If
да, он имеет место
it's
быть.
uploaded
А
to
то, что
Tescom,
там он
then it
распечатался
is
автоматически
significant.
в
But when
сертификат
it
с
was
написью,
printed
подписанной электронной
automatically,
подписью, там
where it says
идентичными
signed with
данными
electronic signature,
адресата,
legal data
это ни не значит,
of the
потому что там
signatory,
какие-то
this
достоверности
means
ограничения
nothing because we can Photoshop them quickly. It's
Хорошо.
not
Теперь
what's
вот,
necessary.
значит, выбрать еще одну
So,
вещь.
next question. You said one of your key advantages
Есть
is
документы
that there is a
на
document
мобильной
archive,
связи.
paper archive, and they can be
Связь,
lost. Nothing is lost in e-form.
через 5
But
лет
also you
будет.
mentioned that if you log in 5 years,
Смотрите,
you
доверять
won't find your docs.
сертификату.
Well,
Самый
it
простой
may
пример
be possible,
электронный
maybe
документ,
not.
документ
Let me put
оборота.
it simply.
Представь себе, не
People
знаю,
practicing it say the following. Just
какие-нибудь
imagine
документы, хотим особо, ну подожди, какие-нибудь.
not very
Нет,
significant
информация
documents in
конкретно,
printed
вот
form,
у тебя раз коробка, два коробка, у тебя за там, полгода накопится
and in
просто
6
большая
months
коробка
you have a whole
бумажек.
box of these paper
В
forms.
электронном документообороте у
With
тебя тоже будет куча
e-turnover,
этих
you
документов,
will
но они
also
будут
have a
мелкие
whole bunch of
файлики, которые быстро
documentation, but
всплывают
they
в
will be in
бумаге.
small files,
И
weighing a
чтобы
couple of kilobytes.
покупать гладкий
So
документ,
what's easier, to
попробуй, не
buy
знаю,
a paper
систему,
archive
называйте там 2022, там, второй год,
file
да,
systems, or
смотри,
just
в
file it
электроне ты
online?
можешь просто эти документы
You
все
can
загрузить
raise all of these
и печатать
documents at
в
any
Tescom файле,
time, drag and drop them into Tescom file, it will
то есть
open all of your docs and you
хранить
can
документы
access
в
them.
цифровой
So
среде
store the docs
это да,
yourself,
все равно проще и выгоднее.
and storing it
Безопаснее, потому что
online,
твоя
it's
информация
safer,
все равно
easier,
там
and
лежат.
safer,
А шанс того,
no
что
matter what
что-нибудь
anyone
взорвется твой
says,
компьютер,
because the
взорвется
chance
интернет,
that
взорвется
your
информационная
computer
инфраструктура.
will blow up much less than a fire in an archives.
У меня тоже появился вопрос. Здравствуйте, меня
I
зовут Екатерина.
have a
Скажите,
question.
пожалуйста, насколько вообще
Elizabeth,
электронный документооборот
could you please
сейчас
tell me
реализован?
how
И
much electronic
готовы ли
turnover is
столько компаний
implemented
к выходу
today?
коммерциальных
What are
соглашений
the
в 2024
forecasts? How
год?
many
Насколько это
companies
актуально
are
в ближайшее
switching
время?
or have switched to
Так,
e-turnover,
что
to
касается тех, кто
e-docs?
пользуется, в принципе, все большие компании,
Well,
особенно
as for the
крупнейшие,
large companies, especially retail stores, they are all using e-docs because it's much easier.
окей, там было бы
For instance, the hypermarkets, supermarkets, the underground.
Какие прогнозы? Ну, все это
What
дело
are the
все происходит,
forecasts?
потому что есть
Everything is
своя страна
growing
вначале, на самом первом
exponentially.
слайде
As I
говорил,
mentioned earlier at the very outset on the
кто
first slide,
является
I
движущими
told you
силами
who are the movers in
это
developing and
очень наше
scaling
государство, потому что
e-doc
один момент
system.
оно
First
включилось
of
в
all, this
состав
is our
федерации.
government.
С этого дня
One
можно
day
было
they said
оплачивать свои
the
электронные услуги,
taxation
делайте, что хотите, но
from
в
this
электронной
day
среде.
is going to use
Пускайте
electronic
все эти
turnover.
жалобы.
Do what you
Все,
like,
вот,
but you need to work with
пожалуйста,
it.
вот программное решение, можно пользоваться. И в первую очередь,
Here is a software solution to use, and first of all, the main driver for this e-progress
ну, в частности,
is
федеральная
the
налоговая
Federal Taxation Service, actually, because it is much more
вопрос,
convenient.
ну, блин, очень чувствую, я
according to their forecasts.
Там же как еще бывает, то, что я говорил про транспортные
And
электронные документы.
I
То
also
есть
told you about
бывает
transport electronic docs.
электронные документы, а я
For instance, I'm a small wholesaler and I go to a huge hypermarket and I say I cannot use your e-system. They will tell me, look, if you don't join the e-system, we'll have to let you go and find someone else. So then I join and then I subscribe my own sub-distributors or subcontractors. And that's very important.
посмотрят, а все вокруг нас видно.
So one day, even old businesses that traditionally work with paper will raise their head, look up, and see everyone else on e-docs, and they will have to join too. Good. Thank you. Next question. I understand that e-turnover requires financial investments, and it's probably that some companies find it cheaper on paper. Is there any difference financially? Yes, certainly there is a difference. Just a moment.
Тоже без цифр слайд. Ну, в общем, иными словами,
Well, in other words,
если посчитать стоимость отправки одного электронного
if we do the numbers, the cost of sending one e-doc is
этого же документа
50 cents.
в бумажном формате,
Sending the document electronically is much more expensive because regardless
один килобайт
of the e-docs and whether it costs 1 kilobyte or 1 megabyte,
стоит 40.
it's still worth the same. You can send a document,
Сколько одностраничный?
you can send a doc
Ты можешь прекрасно посчитать.
in paper form, and in paper form
40-й бумаге
you can do
какая подписчика огромная.
the debit and credit
Бумага, которая сейчас
and realize.
устаканилась, но все равно по стоимости дороже стала. Плюс цены на
And also the prices for the cartridges supplied from overseas are quite expensive.
это тоже все очень дорого. Вот. И в любом случае, ну, стоимость перехода
In any case, the cost of the shift, you won't feel the savings immediately,
как Скрудж Макдак в фонтане золота купались.
like Scrooge McDuck in a pot of gold. Certainly it won't happen immediately, but in a while, in a year, you will be able to match your accounting costs on paper turnover and then compare it to the costs for e-turnover.
Принтер, краски, карандаши, ручки, степлеры, кнопки, бумага, папки, скрепки, ну, а я что?
The courier,
Вот Кирилл
the staples,
сказал, курьерская доставка документов, это самое
courier delivery is the biggest cost.
курьер как бы не нужен.
E-turnover doesn't need couriers. It's enough just to send it across. Online. Thank you very much. And one more question.
Забыла. Вы сказали,
You mentioned
юридически не являетесь
the fact
что какая-то
that you are not legally responsible for any mistakes in the documentation.
Например, ты отправляешь
Look, for instance, you send a document across an e-doc turnover operator to your counterparty. They receive it, sign it, but during transfer a mistake occurs. There is a minuscule percentage of this occurring, of this happening. Point something. Small minuscule chance.
по нашей системе
Because once the doc
сессии этого
comes into our system, nothing can happen to it in transfer to your counterpart. And if you turn to us one day and say,
пожалуйста, за это ответственности не несем. Просто я тебе говорю о том, что
well, what I'm saying is,
эксцессов их в принципе не бывает. Это вот там шанс того,
no excesses. Well, practically there is a minuscule chance of anything going wrong. But we do not hold any legal responsibility for it. We can guarantee that the document will be delivered.
То есть в любом случае должен быть человек, который
So there has to be a person who can verify this doc. No. for instance, you send me a general format doc across the e-doc turnover system. As a supplier, you send me your internal invoice, universal invoice. As a manufacturer or a distributor, wholesaler, you send it to me, I get it, and I cross-sign it. This document always has the same format. No mistakes are possible except by you. If you make a mistake in the amount or delivery details, it's a template. You only enter your values in the fields. Costs, delivery, agent. So when I used to work with this type of docs electronically, that's exactly what it looks like. Apples, bananas, the document is signed quickly. The information to the controlling bodies has been forwarded. So briefly, that's all. And if you send me a PDF file, if you generated this yourself, and we agreed that we will mutually recognize these docs, you send me a formal PDF letter of apology or price change, protocol signed with your e-signature, and if I get this PDF, imagine this happens, and you call me and ask about the mistakes. We will have to apologize, but this is little likely. So only in this case we don't have any legal responsibility. I'm not sure what needs to happen to the document to be filed in transfer. Nothing can happen. Thank you. Very good. Anyone else? Please. I have a question on the marking. Why is it done on water, and why does the price change? Well, markings on products were developed so that the turnover that we see nationwide with the manufacturer who produced the milk, the wholesaler and the store, for all of these numbers, for all of this, for the government to have information, oversight and control over all of the products moving across this goods chain. This needs, for instance, to prevent illegal sales. And when you go to any hypermarket beyond Moscow, they have no marking systems. But the next question, why does this increase the cost and expenses? Well, if you are the manufacturer, then the fair mark, the marking organization, they can even provide you a discount if you approach them to buy the equipment. Imagine I am the manufacturer. I invested into marking equipment. The manufacturer sells it on to the wholesaler. Wholesaler also buys the scanners, TSD scanners. You know, the infrared scanners to scan the whole delivery, to get all the information, pass it on to fair mark. Then the product goes to any food retail store. And then at the food retail store, they have to also invest into cash register checkout equipment to get the scanner that will also scan all of these codes and mark them. Apart from it, each of the three players has to be connected with an e-documentation operator, and accordingly, this is certainly costs, but every cent goes into the final product cost. And this is how it works. This is called data matrix code. It's not a QR code, actually, on top of the bottle. Data matrix code. And so, if anyone
Просто недавно прям вот видел своими глазами, вот через честный знак
recently,
заходил,
I saw it when I logged
практически
into Fair Mark system.
ну, там по честному знаку был небольшой нескосняк.
I saw that a colleague of
Возвращение
mine had a discrepancy
не попалось
in the system.
потому что
He had highlighted the amount of products
я
that didn't
прикинул,
enter the
сколько
marking
выполняю,
system. For instance,
по
I'll
программе
explain.
должно быть 80-50.
I accepted 100 bottles
Может быть, я частный
delivery,
лот продал не
but I
соответственно.
sold 50 only, the program says. What does it mean? I sold 50 illegally, so everything is controlled,
Новые товары.
and
Как они добавляются
more
в каталог
product
свободных
categories
есть
are added.
элементы, допустим, молоко, вода,
How are they added? Why is it dairy, water, tobacco first and not meat, not sausage?
пока еще не
I couldn't tell you right now.
ну, у них есть там определенная стратегия.
And also, they have a certain strategy
Добавляют список товаров,
that they use
смотреть.
to add product categories, to monitor
Потому
product
что
sales.
зачем нужно следить за товаром?
Why do products need to be traced?
Почему это государство?
Why does state need traceability? Traceability is necessary for everyone to cover their tax entitlements.
Условно, налево в лотке, государству с этой бутылки молока ничего не упадет. Вот я, получается,
If I sell it illegally, the government will not be paid tax. But if I have the marking system logging the product, its locations, and its exit of the system, the state can monitor where the product went, how it was sold, and so on. That's on the markings. Thank you.
Есть еще вопросы?
Do you have any more questions, dear friends? That's all. Now everyone will want to send in their student assignment across the e-doc system. Well, you can do that, no problem. Everything works, all the formats are available. Well, Georgi, thank you very much for this fantastic lecture. We have made it on time. Just a short comment. You said right now a short joke about our student assignments being sent online. Dear friends, which of you, when printing your school assignments, your first year, you haven't written any? Good. When you will pay 500 rubles for 100 pages of printing, I had to reprint my 150 pages twice, is the reply. 3 times reply from the audience. You bring it to your teacher, and sometimes he said, "Why do you have a wrong point, wrong dot here, or a full stop and a comma? Reprint it, please." So electronically, it's much easier to avoid this printing. You know how you send it to your lecturer's email, ask him. He comments on the changes, you introduce changes, and then you bring it. And then he looks at it again. He said, "Oh, I think I forgot something. You need to redo it." But what about electronic format? Electronic format is much more convenient. Correct everything on the spot, accept corrections. No need to print. So a great field to develop e turnover in education. That is cool. Psychological trauma to reprint your diploma twice because your scientific advisor doesn't disagree with a small point. Well, dear friends, if you have any more questions, join TESCOM in the future when you become top businessman. We'll be very happy to see you. Thank you so much, and goodbye. This session is over.